What is happening, everybody? On today's show, Alabama and Georgia, the two best teams in the country, they are once again facing off. Both teams back in the national championship game. We'll tell you how we got here. Also, the SEC finally picking up several wins in bowl games over the weekend. We'll recap all the action, and we'll go around the conference. Plenty of moves, hires, transfers, guys coming back, guys going pro. We'll recap it all. Locked on SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. Great to have you guys along. Today's episode is brought to you by Sonos. Experience the game like never before with Sonos Arc, the premium smart soundbar for TV, movies, music, gaming, and more. Visit Sonos.com to learn more. I'm Chris Gordy. Thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Remember, Locked On SEC is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube and at LockedOnSEC.com. All right, let's jump into it. Plenty to recap the college football playoff semifinals over the weekend. And we start with the Cotton Bowl, where Alabama dominated Cincinnati 27-6. Heisman Trophy winner Bryce Young threw for 3 touchdowns, but running back Brian Robinson Jr. was the star of the day. 26 carries for over 200 yards. He averaged almost 8 yards a carry. The Cincinnati defense just had no answer for the Alabama run game. On the day, Bama had 47 carries for over 300 yards rushing, and Robinson's day ranked 3rd for most rushing yards in a college football playoff game, behind just 2 games by Ezekiel Elliott. It was a vintage Bama victory. Dominant run game, suffocating defense. In the absence of John Mechie on offense, freshman Ja'Cory Brooks had a nice game, 4 catches for 66 yards and a touchdown. Slade Bolden and Cameron Latu both had touchdown receptions as well. But it was defensively. Bama racked up 6 sacks on Cincy quarterback Desmond Ridder. Stud linebacker Will Anderson had 2 sacks. Phil Mathis had a sack. DJ Dale, Dallas Turner. Bama held Cincinnati to just 218 total yards of offense. On the scoreboard, it was only a 21-point Alabama win, but it felt like it could have been a lot more. And Alabama will play for its 9th national championship in the past 13 seasons. An unbelievable run for the Crimson Tide. Perhaps just as, if not even more impressive, the SEC, an SEC team has now advanced to 15 of the last 16 national championship games. The lone one was Oregon versus Ohio State. I want to say that was somewhere around 2013, 2014, right when the playoffs started. But outside of that, an SEC team has played for the championship 15 of the last 16 national championship games. That is unbelievable. The run the SEC and Nick Saban have had will probably never be matched again. I think we cannot overstate how ridiculously dominant both the Alabama program and the Southeastern Conference have been for about the past 20 years. In your other semifinal game, well, we kept asking, how will Georgia respond following their worst game of the season in the SEC title game? Well, the real Georgia team stood up, absolutely demolishing number 2 ranked Michigan 34-11. It was the Georgia defense we saw for much of this season, holding Michigan to just 3 points for much of the game before they allowed a very late touchdown with all the backups in. They had 4 sacks on the day. Nolan Smith, Nakobe Dean, Robert Beal, Trayvon Walker. They held Michigan under 100 yards rushing on the day. Deion Kendrick intercepted Michigan quarterback Cade McNamara not once, but twice on the day. Offensively, Georgia rushed for almost 200 yards. Zamir White was the leading rusher, while James Cook, he had 32 yards rushing and 112 receiving yards. Kenny McIntosh threw an 18-yard touchdown pass on a trick play. And I got to give a tip of the cap to Stetson Bennett, who was outstanding. 20 for 30 for 313 yards, 3 touchdowns, no turnovers. Also kept some plays alive with his feet. He had 3 rushes for 32 yards. Look, it was a deflating performance in the SEC title game, but I thought Stetson Bennett bounced back in a big way against a really strong Michigan front. at Georgia O-line really played well. Aiden Hutchinson is expected to be a top 5 pick in this year's draft. He was held without a sack, and the Georgia O-line didn't give up a sack, period, on the day to that Michigan defense. After the game, Kirby Smart, he was all business, refused a celebratory Gatorade bath. He said that's not what it's all about right now. So they are straight business heading into this national championship game with their sights set on bigger things. And now we have a rematch in this year's SEC title game, a rematch of the 2018 national championship just 4 years later. Georgia versus Alabama once again. Alabama, they have won 7 straight against Georgia, including that overtime win in the title game back in 2018. Of course, the Tua moment, the Saban lives rent-free in Smart's head narrative still is out there. Question is, can Kirby Smart break it? Look, we will get into previewing this game throughout the week, but I'll just say this now. It is very tough to beat a team twice in the same season. It's also tough to beat Nick Saban, period. So all of that we'll be previewing throughout the week. But congrats to both SEC teams and all SEC national championship between Bama and Georgia. And everyone else across the country hates it because the SEC will once again be a national champion. All right, when we return here on Locked On SEC, we're going to preview or recap the other bowl games that happened over the weekend from the SEC as they picked up a couple more victories. We'll discuss that as well as going around the conference. All that coming your way in just a bit. Thanks again for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Look, guys, it is the new year, so that means New Year's resolutions. If yours is about getting fit or eating healthier, you want to make sure you include Built Bar in your plan. Just go to Built.com. You can check out everything they got to offer. Built Bar is a protein bar that tastes like a candy bar. It's probably even better than a candy bar. It is makes it easy to stick to your resolutions because it tastes so good. You will want to eat it, unlike other protein bars, which can be chalky or just downright not very flavorful. You want to eat healthy, but it gets so boring. You might be thinking, diet's not worth it. I need chocolate. Well, Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate. Most Built Bars contain 130 calories, 4 grams sugar, 4 grams net carbs, 17 grams of protein. Compare that to a candy bar, which is usually double the calories, like 30 grams of sugar, dozen net carbs. Here's an idea for the new year. Go to all your secret treat stashes at home, in the pantry, at the office, in the car, wherever. Throw out all those sugary or calorie-filled treats and replace them with Built Bars. Just go to Built.com right now. Use our promo code LOCKED15, LOCKED15. That will get you 15% off your first order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. Get started the right way in the new year. All right, roll along here, Locked On SEC, and we recap the 2 semifinal games over the weekend, but we got to recap some of the other bowl action that happened. Of course, Alabama and Georgia both advancing to the national championship. But let's start Saturday night as Ole Miss, man, they lost the Sugar Bowl 21-7, but the biggest story out of this one was Matt Corral leaving the game early due to injury. Lane Kiffin's explosive offense was not as explosive once Matt Corral left the game. Corral obviously made headlines in recent weeks as he stood by his decision to play in this game, despite being a projected high first-round pick in this year's NFL draft, and the fact the Sugar Bowl is not a playoff game. On Ole Miss's third series, he was sacked by Baylor's Cole Maxwell, had to be helped off the field as he couldn't put weight on his right foot. He was carted to the locker room and returned to the sidelines on crutches. The camera caught him with tears in his eyes a couple times. Really tough to see that. But ultimately, look, wherever you come down on it, should players opt out or should they play in the bowl games if it's not a playoff game? I think every situation is unique and every player should make the best decision for themselves. If Matt Corral had opted out, we would have understood. If Matt Corral wanted to play in the Sugar Bowl, we understood. Let the kids make the decision that they think is best for them. I digress. In the game, freshman quarterback Luke Altmeier, he took over for Ole Miss. Just had a roller coaster of a game. He led Ole Miss on a scoring drive, threw a touchdown to Braylon Sanders. but he also threw not one but two costly interceptions that gave Baylor opportunities to extend their lead in the game, and Baylor did a good job slowing down Ole Miss's run game. They held Jerrion Ely to 65 yards, Snoop Connor to 42. Dontario Drummond did make a few nice catches. He finished with 9 catches for 104 yards on the day. And Ole Miss did a good job overall defensively. They held Baylor's quarterback Bohannon to just 40 yards passing, while running back Abram Smith, he was the star of the night. 25 carries, 172 yards rushing for Baylor. For Ole Miss, linebacker Chance Campbell, he led the team in tackles with 10 for the Rebels. But Ole Miss, their offense was averages over 500 yards of offense per game. They were held to just 322 yards of offense, and Baylor went on to win it 21-7. But the high-flying Ole Miss offense was really stifled without Matt Corral, and all the headlines from this one came down to Corral's decision to play. And should guys who are projected as first-round picks play in a non-playoff bowl game? Lane Kiffin said after the game, look, Matt Corral means so much to our team. After the Outback Bowl last year, all he wanted to do was come back and be an impact player. He's just a really special guy, and he is going to make a great NFL player and do great for an NFL franchise. So here's hoping Matt Corral, the injury is not long and doesn't hurt his draft stock coming up in April. Earlier in the day on Saturday, Kentucky beat Iowa in the Citrus Bowl 20-17. It was a game the Wildcats were dominating early on, but then the second half, Iowa's offense started to wake up. Kentucky's defense started to look sluggish, and under 4 minutes to play, Kentucky got the ball trailing Iowa 17-13. Will Levis and company, they engineered an 8-play, 80-yard go-ahead touchdown drive with Wandale Robinson coming up big on the drive. He hauled in a 52-yard pass down to the Iowa 1-yard line with less than 2 minutes to play. They were able to punch it in, take the lead. DeAndre Square, he sealed the victory with an interception in the final minute. Kentucky picked up their 10th win of the season, finishing 10-3 overall. According to USA Today, Mark Stoops earned a $250,000 bonus for reaching 10 wins. He's now earned over $600,000 in incentives this year. He's due to make $6.3 million in salary next year. It's really impressive what Mark Stoops has been able to do in his time at Kentucky. It's his second 10-win season in the past 4 years, and he is 33-17 in that span. Certainly the most success Kentucky has had in a very long time on the football field. The other early game on Saturday, it was Arkansas beating Penn State 24-10 in the Outback Bowl. It was a game, if you tune in the first half, Arkansas really struggled to do much of anything. They trailed 10-7 at halftime, couldn't get the offense going, but in the second half, Sam Pittman and company, they saw Penn State had no answer for the Arkansas run game, including KJ Jefferson, the quarterback, taking off and running. KJ finished with 20 carries for 110 yards and a score. On the day, the Razorbacks rushed 58 times for 353 yards. It was an Arkansas Bowl record. Rocket Sanders, he had 79 yards and 2 touchdowns. Dominique Johnson had 77 yards. KJ Jefferson threw for just 98 yards. Obviously, having no Traylon Burks hurt them in the passing game, but that run game was so effective, they really didn't have to pass it. Defensively, Hayden Henry, Grant Morgan, Bumper Poole, they all delivered some punishing hits throughout the game on Penn State, and the Arkansas defense shut out Penn State in the second half. Arkansas goes on to finish the season an impressive 9-4, having played one of the toughest schedules in the country. They finished with wins over several ranked teams, including Mississippi State, Texas A&M, Texas. They beat LSU, and now Penn State. Sam Pittman is now 12-11 in his 2 seasons in Fayetteville, and feels like that arrow is pointing even more upward for the Razorbacks moving forward. And there you have it. That is our recap of the bowl action from the season. We'll have one more bowl game to go in the SEC. LSU playing Kansas State on Tuesday night, and then, of course, the 2 teams in the national championship. Thank you guys again for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. When we return, we will go around the conference. Plenty of news of guys opting out, heading to the draft, and other guys staying in school and coming back for another year of SEC play. We'll discuss all of that in just a second. A message out there for SEC fans. There is an incredible app everyone who buys gas needs to know about and check out, and that is Get Upside. Our listeners are making up to 25 cents for every gallon of gas every time they fill up. You just download the free Get Upside app in the App Store or Google Play right now. Make sure you use our promo code SCORE, and you will get a bonus 25 cents per gallon on your first fill up. That's up to 50 cents cash back. Don't pay full price at the pump anymore. Get cash back when you use Get Upside. You download the app for free. Again, use our promo code SCORE. Get up to 50 cents per gallon cash back on your first tank. Some people who drive a lot are making as much as $200 to $300 a month in cash back. And there's no catch. The cash back gets added right to your account. You can cash out at any time to your bank account, PayPal, an e-gift card, Amazon, whatever. Again, go download the free Get Upside app and use our promo code SCORE. That'll get you up to 50 cents per gallon cash back on your first tank. That's code SCORE at the Get Upside app. Going along here, Locked On SEC, and we got a ton of stuff to get into. So much news going on around the conference. So let's do it. Let's go around the conference.
Boots out to the right. Intercept. Takes the handoff. What a catch.
Around the conference.
And we start over at Texas A&M as they finish the early signing period with the nation's #1 recruiting class. We knew that already, but now the rich get richer as the Aggies beat out LSU and Texas for yet another five-star player, their sixth one of this recruiting class. Five-star linebacker Harold Perkins, the number 5 overall player in this class, according to 24/7 Sports, committed to Texas A&M during the Under Armour All-America game over the weekend. Perkins is the #1 linebacker in the class, the #1 overall recruit from the state of Texas. And the Aggies now have 28 players in their 2022 recruiting class, which currently ranks #1 in the SEC, #1 in the nation, and probably going to set records when it's all said and done for the highest ranked class statistically. Will it translate to wins on the field? Well, look at the two teams that have consistently had top 5 recruiting classes every year, Alabama and Georgia. They're both playing for the championship. So see what Jimbo Fisher is able to do with this special group of players. Mentioned LSU. They're heading into Tuesday's Texas Bowl against Kansas State, but they're going to do so with a depleted roster. According to 24/7 Sports, LSU will have barely 40 guys available that arrived at LSU on scholarship. So that means they're going to have walk-ons, guys who were given scholarships after they came to LSU as walk-ons or whatever. Cornerback and quarterback are 2 of their thinnest spots. They have a total of 3 corners listed, including a walk-on. And the quarterback spot is one that's kind of up in the air. Freshman Garrett Nussmeier is the only scholarship quarterback available, but he played in his 4 games this year, and he wanted to redshirt. LSU requested a special waiver from the NCAA that would allow Nussmeier to play in a 5th game and still use his red shirt, but no word yet on whether they granted that waiver. So interim head coach Brad Davis, talking with the media yesterday, would not reveal if Garrett Nussmeier will play in this game on Tuesday. But if he doesn't, LSU will either have to go with a walk-on quarterback, maybe one of their wide receivers, and Jottrick Kirkland. I don't know. This will be very interesting to see what LSU does. There was some good news for the future of LSU over the weekend as they officially hired their offensive coordinator. According to Pete Thamel of Yahoo Sports, Cincinnati offensive coordinator Mike Denbrock will become LSU's new offensive coordinator. Of course, since he lost to Alabama Friday in the college football playoff game. In addition to hiring Denbrock, Kelly is reportedly hiring former Louisiana Tech OC Joe Sloan as the Tigers' next quarterbacks coach. So new additions there for LSU. All right, let's get to some player announcements. Over at Ole Miss, wide receiver Dontario Drummond, who was a key receiver for the Ole Miss Rebels high-flying offense this year. He had 76 catches for over 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns. Drummond announced on Twitter he will be following Matt Corral into the NFL draft. So Dontario Drummond and Matt Corral both heading to the pros. Another Ole Miss player, running back Jerrion Ely, announced on social media that he is heading for the NFL draft. He came into Ole Miss in the class of 2019 as a 5-star player. nation's number 3 overall running back during his 3 years in Oxford. He rushed for over 2,200 yards and 20 touchdowns. Over at Mississippi State on Sunday, wide receiver Makai Polk, he announced on Twitter he is entering the NFL draft. Polk was a key part of the Bulldogs offense this year, had 105 catches for over 1,000 yards and 9 touchdowns, all team highs. So we will see where Polk ends up going, but very benefited very much in the Mike Leach air raid offense in Starkville. Over at Arkansas, running back Traylon Smith, who had just under 600 rushing yards in 2021. He announced on Instagram that his Arkansas days are over. He said, "Thank you, Arkansas. Deuce, checking out." Smith was in his 3rd season at Arkansas following a transfer in from Arizona State. He led the team in rushing in 2020 with over 700 yards and 5 touchdowns. In addition, Arkansas cornerback Monterey Brown announced he is headed to the NFL. He was a first-team All-SEC selection after his 5 interceptions tied the national lead this regular season. He put together a career year in his 3rd year as a full-time starter for the Razorbacks, played in 34 games. So best of luck to Monterey Brown going to the next level. Over in Knoxville, Tennessee, one of their best offensive linemen will not be back in Knoxville. He is heading to the pros. Cade Mays, standout at right tackle for the Vols, made the announcement over the weekend he will pursue an NFL career. Thanked his family, teammates, and coaches. Did not play in the Music City Bowl loss to Purdue last week. Injury issues really plagued his season for much of this year, but he will head on to the next level. Over at Kentucky, defensive end Josh Paschal announced he is headed to the pros. He's listed as a senior in the Wildcats roster, but could have opted another year in Lexington with the COVID eligibility rule. Started all 12 games this year for Kentucky. Had 15.5 tackles for a loss, 5.5 sacks. And lastly, LSU running back Ty Davis-Price announced he has opted out of the bowl game. He will forego his senior season, taking his talents to the NFL. Ty Davis-Price rushed for over 1,000 yards, averaging almost 5 yards per carry this year. He broke the LSU single-game rushing record, running for 287 yards and 3 touchdowns in their win over Florida this year. Now, how about guys coming back over at Auburn? Owen Papo, the Tigers linebacker, announced he will return in 2022. He's a former 5-star recruit, signed in Auburn's 2019 class, started every game as a true freshman. His production really took off last year. This season, he missed a big chunk of it due to injuries, only played in 5 games, but he has been a staple of that Auburn defense. That will be a big boost for the Auburn defense next year. In addition, on the offensive side, tight end John Samuel Shanker announced he will return to Auburn next year, made the announcement on social media. Shanker caught 33 passes this year for over 400 yards for Auburn. Over in South Carolina, defensive back R.J. Roderick cited unfinished business in his message to fans, saying he is coming back for next season. He said, "I see a level that I want to reach." Roderick will play in his 5th season for the Gamecocks next year, so big piece of that defense coming back for South Carolina. Over at Mizzou, Martez Manuel, a big part of that Missouri defense. He announced he is coming back. He was a team captain for the Tigers this year, looking to repeat that role next year. Great news for Steve Wilkes and that Missouri defense. Over at Florida, the Gators got some good news. Linebacker Lloyd Summerall announced he's taking his name out of the transfer portal. And another guy, according to On3 Sports, defensive lineman Dante Zanders, he entered his name in the portal in November. He has pulled his name out of the portal. So remember, just because you put your name in the portal doesn't mean that you're absolutely leaving. So Billy Napier, using his recruiting and negotiation skills, getting 2 guys that are in the portal at Florida to end up staying at Florida. So good news for them. And there you have it. Those are all the news and notes from around the conference in a busy, busy weekend. Thank you guys again for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Now you can go make your second listen. Check out the Locked On Bets podcast, your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. Your boy Q and Lee Sterling, giving you all your gambling picks, free and available on all platforms. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks so much for listening to Locked On SEC. We'll be back tomorrow. I'm going to start previewing this Alabama-Georgia matchup in the national championship throughout this week. We'll also have some special guests joining us as well. You don't want to miss that. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow right here on Locked On SEC.